The heavy vault door to the armory slid open with a deep metallic groan, the rune locks hissing as they disengaged, spilling a wash of pale light into the hallway. Rose stepped through first, her boots silent on the reinforced stone floor, Lyra following close behind. The air inside was cool, crisp, tinged with the sharp scent of magic and gun oil. Rows of weapons, gear, and enchanted supplies lined the shelves in perfect order, a fortress of utility and lethal potential. But even before the door sealed shut behind them, the embedded runes at the threshold flared faintly, a pulse of golden magic rippling across the ceiling. Silent alarm. Eli knew they were here. Rose barely glanced up. She folded her hands neatly behind her back, adopting a posture of nonchalance she didn't entirely feel. She knew better than to go poking around Eli's domain without permission. Lyra, however, had no such hesitation. The moment her boots hit the floor, she veered sharply left, making a beeline for a sealed case of familiar black discs. The explosive pucks she had used in Mirkdust. A slow, almost theatrical sigh drifted across the room. From behind a stack of reinforced crates, Eli emerged, boots scuffing lightly on the floor, a rag slung over one shoulder, her arms crossed. Her bracer gloves glowed faintly with diagnostic magic, and the unimpressed arch of her brow could have cut steel. "You thinking about touching that, Lyra?" Eli said flatly. "Or are you just admiring the craftsmanship?" Lyra's hand froze about an inch from the case. There was a beat of tense silence. Then Eli smiled, thin and not at all friendly. "Touch anything without asking," she continued coolly, "and I'll personally remove the offending limb." At the shoulder. Lyra snorted and drew her hand back, barely. "Relax, Tech Queen," she muttered. "Just browsing." "Yeah?" Eli said, her voice sharp as a blade. "You want a damn souvenir, go raid the lost and found. This is inventory, not a toy aisle." From her place near the door, Rose kept her expression carefully neutral. But there was a glint of amusement in her eyes as she watched the exchange. She knew better than to interrupt. This was Eli's world. And in her world, no one got a free pass. Not even them. Eli didn't even bother sparing Lyra another warning glance. She already knew how that battle would end if it came to it. Instead, her sharp green eyes flicked over to Rose, standing calmly by the door like she had all the time in the world. If Lyra was the hammer, Rose was the dagger. Silent, precise, waiting for the right moment to strike. And Eli knew better than most that Rose didn't show up here for idle window shopping. Crossing the room with measured steps, Eli wiped her hands on the rag and stuffed it into her belt. Her expression softened by a fraction. But it was still all business. "You," she said, nodding at Rose. "You're not here to keep her from blowing my damn armory sky high, are you?" Behind her, Lyra scoffed. "Please, everyone loves me." She gave Eli an exaggerated wink. "I'm adorable." Eli shot her a flat look. "You're an explosion with legs, Lyra. The only thing adorable about you is how fast you think you can outrun my security systems." Lyra smirked, but wisely said nothing. Eli turned her full attention back to Rose, her tone shifting, still sharp, but edged with curiosity now. "So," Eli said, folding her arms again, "what's the real reason you're creeping around my stockpile at 2 in the damn morning?" Rose tilted her head slightly, studying Eli with those sharp, unreadable eyes. There was a faint flicker of a smile, just a whisper, but when she spoke, her voice was cool and even. "Just looking," Rose said. "But if you happen to have anything new, anything you haven't decided to accidentally misplace yet?" She let the words trail off, nonchalant but heavy with implication. Eli's mouth twitched at the corner, not a smile exactly, but close. "Looking for toys," she muttered. "Always looking for toys." There was a short pause. Then Eli nodded once, tight, like a decision made. "Fine," she said. "You want to shop? You shop by my rules." She turned on her heel and motioned for them both to follow. "The prototype shelf's open, for browsing only. Touch something without asking and you lose a hand. Start something on fire and Gunnar gets the repair bill. Lyra grinned, completely unbothered. See? She loves me. Eli muttered something under her breath that definitely didn't sound like agreement. Rose smiled to herself and followed, her boots silent against the stone. The prototype shelf was less a shelf and more a series of heavy-duty lockers, each one humming faintly with containment runes. Bright warning tags hung off half the cases, scribbled in Eli's sharp handwriting. Experimental. Touch at own risk. Will explode. Definitely will explode. Lyra made a beeline for the middle locker, her fingers twitching with excitement. Rose, more cautious, drifted along the far side, her sharp eyes scanning for anything subtle, not flashy, but useful. Touch nothing without asking, Eli barked from behind them, still cleaning her wrench with exaggerated patience. And I mean nothing. Lyra threw an innocent glance over her shoulder. I'm just browsing. Gosh, you're so suspicious. Because I know you, Eli muttered. Lyra ignored the warning, zeroing in on a set of slim black discs tucked into a padded case. Her eyes lit up. Bingo, she whispered, reaching for the case. Before her fingers could so much as brush it, a rune glyph flared, sharp blue light sizzling in the air with a crackling pop. Lyra yelped and jumped back, rubbing her singed fingertips. Eli didn't even turn around. I said ask first, Bomb Queen. Rose arched a brow at Lyra's pained grimace. Smooth, she said dryly. Shut up, Lyra hissed, blowing on her fingers. She pointed accusingly at the case. Those! I used one back in Mirkdust, took down an entire portal station with it. They blend in, they cloak, they're perfect for field ops. I need more. Eli finally turned, wiping her hands on her work belt. Her expression was flat, unimpressed. You need a babysitter is what you need. But please, Lyra wheedled, flashing a too bright grin. You love me, remember? Eli stalked over, looming over the case like a dragon guarding treasure. They're prototypes, genius. They're unstable unless you know exactly how to activate them. I do, Lyra said quickly. I totally do. You nearly blew yourself and half the damn mountain to dust last time you used one. Lyra opened her mouth to argue. And Eli, without breaking eye contact, reached over and plucked the case off the shelf. With deliberate care, she handed it to Rose instead. You, she said, nodding at Rose, you get to babysit the explosive child. Lyra gasped. Treason! Rose smirked slightly, tucking the case into her coat without a word. And you, Eli added, pointing a finger at Lyra, get this. From a side drawer, she pulled out a small spherical object, no bigger than a marble, gleaming faintly blue. She tossed it to Lyra, who caught it clumsily. Lyra frowned, turning the sphere over in her hand. What the hell is this? Field disruption beacon, Eli said. Pulse scrambles basic magical detection for about 5 minutes in a 20-meter radius. Rose's interest sharpened slightly at that, but she stayed silent, letting Lyra pout and grumble. It's boring, Lyra whined. It's useful, Eli corrected, crossing her arms. Maybe you'll live long enough to appreciate it. Rose tucked the explosive pucks into her belt, her sharp gaze drifting lower across the cluttered prototype shelf. She paused, half hidden behind a box of enchanted lockpicks and what looked suspiciously like a self-heating coffee mug. A small device gleamed under the low light. It was roughly the size of a thick book, metal-bound with inset crystal veins that pulsed faintly with ley resonance. The craftsmanship was old, pre-modern portal design, the kind of artifact you didn't just build anymore. The kind of artifact you found buried deep under collapsed fortresses. Rose crouched, fingers brushing the device lightly. The crystal lines thrummed under her touch. Portal anchoring tech, specifically a ley seeker. Rare. Dangerous if misused. Able to detect and stabilize natural ley lines, the first step to carving new portal routes. Her heart thudded once. Hard. Eli, she said, her voice deceptively calm. Where did this come from? Behind her, Eli stiffened slightly. Pulled it out of the wreckage of Draven's fortress, she admitted after a beat. One of the extraction teams found it in a vault room still sealed after the battle. Was going to catalogue it once I finished clearing the backlog. Rose carefully lifted the device off the shelf. It was heavier than it looked, radiating a soft hum like a sleeping heartbeat. "Do you know what this is?" Rose asked, rising to her feet. Eli frowned. "Some kind of old-world ley calibrator, right?" Rose's lips quirked slightly, though there was little humour there. "More than that, it's a ley seeker, designed to find the strongest ley currents where portals can be established naturally, not forced. It's old, rare, and priceless." Lyra peered over her shoulder, interested now. "Sounds important. Also sounds like it would be fun to break." "Touch it and I'll fry you," Rose said absently, her focus locked on the device. If what she was planning with Lady Vess was going to work, if she was going to re-establish the Brownstone's influence and stabilise Concordia, this was the tool she'd need. No, the weapon. Eli shrugged. "If you can make use of it, take it. Better in your hands than collecting dust." Rose tucked the ley seeker under one arm, feeling a thrill of dangerous possibility flicker to life inside her. She didn't say thank you, but the way she nodded at Eli was enough. They were moving into unknown territory now, and Rose wouldn't have it any other way. The armory door sealed shut behind them with a sharp hiss, and the crisp night air of the garage rushed in. The scent of oil, hot wiring, and magic residue mixed in the vast space. Floodlights buzzed overhead, throwing long shadows across the skeletal frame of the next Wolfmobile. In the middle of it, hunched over a half-assembled turret mount, was Darren. He didn't look up right away, but Rose knew better. The twitch of his jaw, the slight tilt of his head, said he clocked them the second they stepped through the threshold. As they passed, Darren finally straightened, a wrench dangling loosely from his hand. "Leaving without saying goodbye?" he called, his voice casual, but layered with mock injury. Rose slowed, throwing him a sidelong glance. "Figured you were busy building your midlife crisis truck." Lyra snickered, but Darren just pressed a hand to his chest, staggering back a half step like she'd physically struck him. "Cold, Rose," he said dramatically. "Real cold. After all we've been through, Mirkdust, gunfire, bad cafeteria coffee." "You left me behind at the portal once," Rose said, smirking. "We're even." "You still owe me hazard pay for that mission," he shot back. She stepped closer, her expression softening just a fraction. "Caleb's staying," she said, quieter now. "Keep him alive. He's one of mine." Darren's smile slipped into something more serious. He nodded once. "You got it," he said simply. "I'll look after him." Rose lingered for half a beat longer, enough to let it mean something, before tipping 2 fingers off her forehead in a lazy salute and turning away. As she and Lyra moved toward the portal access, Darren's voice chased after them, rough and teasing. "Hey, when you realize you miss me, you know where to find me. Bring snacks." "Noted," Rose called over her shoulder without breaking stride. The heavy garage door clanged shut behind them, leaving Rose and Lyra in the dimly lit maintenance corridor. The familiar hum of Echo Division's massive internal systems vibrated faintly through the walls. Generators, magical conduits, distant security drones. They moved briskly down the main passage, past the armory annex, and toward the heart of the facility. Even at this late hour, the place never truly slept. Technicians and sentries manned their stations, low murmured conversations, and the click of boots echoing off concrete and steel. As they passed the open construction zone in the lower levels, Lyra slowed slightly, her eyes catching on the skeletal framework of the new permanent portal hub being assembled inside. Massive rune plates were being lowered into place by levitation rigs, humming faintly with raw ley line energy. "Looks like they're gearing up for something big," Lyra muttered, giving the construction a sideways glance. Rose nodded without breaking stride. More than just Mirkdust this time. They descended the final stairwell, security tightening with every step. armoured doors, biometric scanners, and rune glyphs pulsing a low, warning blue. At the end of the hallway stood the main access to the portal chamber, thick steel doors flanked by two heavily armed guards in Echo tactical gear. As they approached, one of the guards, a thick-set man with a buzz cut and a scar along his jaw, raised a hand to stop them. "Authorization," he barked, his gaze hard beneath his visor. Rose casually flipped out her Echo Division ID. "Rose and Lyra. We're on mission." The guard eyed the ID, then frowned. "No travel orders logged for you tonight." Lyra huffed, crossing her arms. "Really? Midnight bureaucracy?" The second guard, a woman with runed gloves, shifted subtly. Not threatening, but definitely ready. "New regs after the Mirkdust breach. No one crosses through without top-level clearance." Rose narrowed her eyes slightly, then without a word pulled her comm and keyed into the secured command channel. The response was almost immediate, Gunner's voice tired but sharp. "They're cleared. Let them through. And log it under Tier 1. My authority." The guards snapped straighter. "Understood, Alpha," the male said quickly, stepping aside. The steel doors rumbled open with a hiss of released air pressure, exposing the secure portal room beyond, a wide chamber reinforced with warded stone and sigil-laced steel. In the centre, the portal shimmered, a swirling oval of pale silver-green energy anchored by ancient runestones embedded in the floor. As they crossed the threshold, the guard called after them. "Guardian Vale has been notified. She's waiting on the Alfheim side." Rose didn't answer. She just gave a small nod and strode forward, Lyra trailing behind with a cocky smirk. The portal's hum grew louder as they approached, a steady thrum like a heartbeat pulsing through the reinforced chamber. Without hesitation, Rose stepped into the swirling energy. Lyra grinned and followed with a wink over her shoulder. "Last one through buys drinks." The portal swallowed them whole and the chamber fell silent once more. The shimmering portal solidified around them, and then, with a sudden jolt, Rose and Lyra emerged onto the cool, misty grounds of Alfheim's primary portal platform. The air here was crisp, rich with the scent of moon lilies and old protective magic. High silvered trees lined the marble paths, their branches glistening under the twin moon's glow. Waiting for them, hands folded calmly before her, stood Eliana Vale, guardian of Alfheim. Her robes were woven with celestial threads, their silver-blue shimmer subtly reinforcing her authority without the need for armor or weapons. Her posture was serene, but the weight of her presence pressed against the skin, like standing near an ancient, unbreakable wall. Rose stepped forward first, giving a respectful nod. "Guardian." Eliana's cool gaze swept across them, lingering on Rose for a moment before shifting, harder to Lyra. "You come under unusual circumstances," Eliana said, her voice calm but carrying the sharpness of a blade, sheathed but ready. "And you," her eyes narrowed at Lyra, "should not set foot on these grounds." Lyra shifted slightly, her stance casual, almost insolent, but Rose noticed the slight stiffening in her shoulders. "You are only here," Eliana continued, "because I choose to allow it. You walk Alfheim at my risk, Lyra of House Vire. And if you dishonor that trust, there will be no second chance." No shouting, no drama, just a quiet, absolute truth that hit harder than any shouted threat. Lyra, to her credit, dipped her head, just enough to satisfy formality without bowing too low. "Understood, Guardian," she said in a tight, even tone. Satisfied, Eliana returned her gaze to Rose. "Gunner sent word," she said, "but I would hear your purpose directly from your own lips before we proceed." Rose offered a faint smile. She expected nothing less. "It's simple," Rose said. "I need access to the detention facility. One prisoner. No distractions. After that, straight to Concordia." Aliena studied her for a moment longer, a silence so heavy it seemed the very air held its breath, before finally nodding. "Then come," she said, turning smoothly and leading them down the gleaming pathway. Her final words floated back to them, clear and cold in the night air. "There will be no deviations from this path. No mercy if you stray." The marble streets of Alfheim stretched ahead, shimmering faintly beneath the twin moons. Aliena's robe fluttered as she moved without hesitation, the weight of her authority palpable with every step. Rose and Lyra followed, their footsteps echoing in the cold, magical air. No distractions, no mercy, no turning back. The path wound downward, deeper into Alfheim's hidden heart, where the stone grew darker and the magic grew heavier. Ahead lay the detention facility, the place where secrets were buried and debts demanded payment. The deeper they moved into Alfheim's subterranean vaults, the colder the air became. Soft lights pulsed in regular intervals along the corridor, casting long shadows across the smooth black stone. No sounds but their footsteps and the faint whisper of layered magic in the walls. Ahead, the entrance to the detention facility loomed. Thick, silverwood doors reinforced with ancient runes. Aliena paused briefly, her hand pressing against a glowing sigil. The doors rumbled open, revealing a wide chamber of crystalline cells, each humming with containment spells, so potent the air vibrated with them. Two figures were visible behind the nearest cells. One was Lady Vess, seated regally despite her confinement, her expression unreadable. The other was Ravina. The fallen fae lounged lazily against the wall of her own cell, her once proud wings now dulled and ragged, barely flickering with any of their old majesty. The moment she caught sight of Rose and Lyra, Ravina straightened, tension flickering behind her violet eyes. Gone was the haughty smirk she'd worn the last time they crossed paths. She looked weary, caged, diminished. Rose folded her arms casually, studying Ravina through the barrier. A faint, dry smile tugged at her lips. Not cruel, not angry, just inevitable. "Well," Rose said, voice smooth as silk, "looks like someone finally got their wings clipped." Ravina stiffened but didn't rise to the bait. Her fingers curled loosely around the edge of the cot behind her, nails tapping out a slow, tense rhythm. "I suppose you would enjoy the sight," Ravina murmured, her voice low and far less venomous than before. Lyra tilted her head slightly, one eyebrow rising in mock sympathy. "You're lucky you're even breathing," she added under her breath, earning a sharp glance from Aliena, who said nothing, yet. Rose stepped closer to the glass, her gaze never leaving Ravina's. "Enjoy it?" she echoed quietly. "Number, I don't enjoy seeing power wasted, potential squandered. But I do believe in consequences." The charged silence stretched between them. For once, Ravina didn't try to bluff or boast. She simply lowered her gaze, her wings twitching once, brittle and hollow. Without another word, Rose turned away, shifting her focus toward Lady Vess's cell, where a different, far more complicated conversation awaited. The crystal glass walls of Lady Vess's cell shimmered faintly, the runes etched into them pulsing with slow, contained magic. Inside, Lady Vess sat like a queen dethroned, regal in posture, but her silvery robes dulled by captivity. She looked up as Rose approached, and the corner of her mouth lifted in something that was almost, but not quite, a smirk. Almost. The silence between them stretched thick, the air between the containment glass feeling heavier than the cold stone of the corridor. Rose said nothing at first. She simply stood there, arms crossed, her weight shifted easily onto one hip, watching, measuring. Lady Vess was the first to break the silence. "I wondered how long it would take," she said lightly, voice smooth but strained at the edges. "You don't usually leave loose ends." Rose's lips twitched. It wasn't quite a smile, more the tightening of a blade before a strike. "No," she said quietly. "I don't." The simple statement hung there, heavy, dangerous. Lady Vess's hand curled slightly in her lap, her fingertips ghosting over the simple binding cuff at her wrist. It was a nervous gesture, small but noticeable to Rose's trained eye. Good. You're not here to finish it, though, Vess said, studying her. If you were, we wouldn't be talking. Rose stepped closer, her boots making a deliberate, sharp click on the stone floor. You're right, Rose said, her voice like velvet over steel. If I were here for that, you'd already be a pile of ash. Lady Vess swallowed. A minute gesture, but it was there. Even a woman as proud as she knew the truth when it stared her in the face. For another long heartbeat, they simply stared at each other. Two queens in exile, calculating their next moves on a battlefield made of grudges and necessity. Then finally Rose spoke again, her voice colder now, surgical. But you're not dead yet, Vess, she said, which means we have something to discuss. Rose let the silence stretch a moment longer, letting the weight of her words sink in before she moved again. She drew closer until only the shimmering rune barrier separated them. She tilted her head slightly, studying Lady Vess with a clinical detachment, like a weapon she might consider reforging if it was worth the effort. You built something once, Rose said, her voice low, deliberate. The House of Silver Mirrors. A network of secrets, commerce, and power that stretched across Concordia. Lady Vess's eyes narrowed slightly, cautious now. You were good at it, Rose continued, better than most. Ruthless when you had to be. Clever enough to survive where others fell. A pause. Then, and stupid enough to think you could betray me and walk away. The sharpness of those words lanced the air between them. Lady Vess flinched, just slightly, before her expression smoothed over again into a mask of icy dignity. But despite that, Rose went on, her voice softer but no less dangerous, you are still useful. And I don't waste useful things, not when the real war is just beginning. Lady Vess's gaze sharpened, something calculating flickering behind her eyes. You need me, she said carefully, testing the waters. Rose smiled then. A slow, dangerous thing. No, she said, voice cutting through the glass between them. I don't need you, but Concordia might. And you? Her smile faded, replaced by something colder, truer. You need me. Because right now, Lady Vess, you are nothing more than a rumor in a cell. She let that sink in before leaning slightly closer, her voice dropping to something conspiratorial, almost intimate. I'm offering you a chance to rebuild, under my terms, with my protection. And just so we're clear, she added, her voice dropping to a near whisper, deadly calm, I don't need you. Not even a little. I can rebuild Concordia with you, or over your ashes. A small shrug, almost casual. Your choice, Vess. But I'd decide quickly. My patience tonight is already wearing thin. She stepped back a fraction, arms folded loosely across her chest, the weight of the decision left squarely and ruthlessly in Lady Vess's lap. For a moment, silence stretched taut between them, razor-thin, humming with tension. Lady Vess lifted her chin, a flicker of the old arrogance creeping into her posture. And if I refuse? She asked, her voice deceptively calm. Rose arched an eyebrow, amused. Then you rot in this pretty little cage until the dust claims you. Or worse, they find a use for your parts. She flicked her gaze briefly toward the enchanted walls, where the faint traces of suppressive magic pulsed like a heartbeat. Vess hesitated, not long enough to be insulting, but long enough that Rose's smile sharpened into something predatory. You think you still have leverage, Rose said, almost kindly. Adorable. She took a slow, deliberate step closer to the barrier, close enough that Vess could see the fire banked behind her eyes. Let me make something clear. Her voice dropped, soft and lethal. I'm not here to bargain. I'm not a desperate player scrambling for pieces. I already won. Lady Vess's mouth tightened, Rose leaned in slightly, the barest hint of a smirk tugging at her lips. Refusing me doesn't save you. It just ensures the last thing you ever taste is your own regret. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Vess's hands unclenched at her sides. She lowered her gaze, the smallest gesture of submission. But Rose caught it, marked it. Good, she thought. There was still pride in Vess, but survival was louder. Finally, Lady Vess spoke, her voice stripped of its former grandeur. Fine, she said, each syllable tasting like ash in her mouth. I'll work with you. Rose's smile thinned, a glint of fire sparking behind her eyes. For me, she corrected, her tone deceptively soft, a scalpel slicing clean through the air. You work for me, Vess, never alongside. Lady Vess stiffened, the last embers of her pride smouldering under Rose's calm gaze, but she said nothing. Silence was agreement. Rose let the silence stretch a moment longer, then leaned back, the ghost of satisfaction curling at the edge of her lips. Good girl, she murmured. Rose stood, the dim light of Alfheim's detention chamber gleaming off the silver bracelet still locked around her wrist. She circled Lady Vess slowly, each step deliberate, radiating the cold power of someone who knew she held every card. You will work for me, Rose corrected crisply, her voice slicing through the air like a blade. Not with me, not alongside me, for me. Every move you make will be watched, every word weighed. Lady Vess stiffened, her jaw tightening, but she wisely said nothing. You'll rebuild the House of Silver Mirrors, Rose continued, her tone clinical. You'll do it my way, at my pace. No secret negotiations, no private alliances. She paused in front of Vess, tilting her head slightly, the faintest hint of a smirk tugging at her mouth. And, speaking of secrets, her voice dropped lower, silk over steel. Draven's dead. Has been for a few weeks now. Figured you'd want to update your mental playbook. She delivered it casually, like commenting on the weather, but the spark of shock in Vess's eyes was impossible to miss. Rose smiled coldly and leaned in just slightly closer. Oh, and one more thing, she said, almost lazily. If I find out, even for a second, that you're whispering with the House of Night Whispers without my blessing. Her smile sharpened into something predatory. I'll burn your precious house to the ground, and then I'll salt the earth where it stood. She let the threat hang between them, heavy and undeniable. Lady Vess, pale but composed, inclined her head ever so slightly. Submission, or at least the appearance of it. Rose stepped back, satisfied. Good, then we understand each other. Behind her, Lyra smirked, arms crossed, clearly enjoying the spectacle. Lady Vess lowered her gaze slightly, carefully composing her expression into one of calm submission. But Rose, no stranger to masks, caught the faintest flicker, the tightening around Vess's mouth, the way her fingers curled and uncurled ever so slightly. She wasn't accepting defeat, she was calculating. Good, let her scheme. Rose was 3 moves ahead. As Rose finished laying out her expectations, Lyra, ever the restless one, meandered casually to a battered supply shelf along the far wall. She picked through it with apparent disinterest. A few cracked scroll tubes, some old ink vials, until she found a roll of heavy parchment and a stub of charcoal. Without missing a beat, she unrolled the parchment across a nearby table, the ancient script flowing easily from her fingers. Smooth, elegant Elvish lines took form. I, Lady Vess, am a total bitch for what I did to Rose. Signed in shame and eternal embarrassment. Lyra's grin was pure mischief as she dusted the parchment off and rolled it back up tightly, keeping it close as she returned to the centre of the room. Rose, sharp-eyed as ever, caught the flicker of movement but said nothing. As Vess finished her stiff nod of agreement, Lyra stepped forward, her voice sugary sweet. One last thing, she said. In Alfheim, deals are bound by signature. And blood. Vess blinked, caught off guard. Blood? Lyra nodded, utterly serious. Tradition. She held out the parchment and a small ceremonial dagger she had also borrowed from the shelf. Just a prick of your finger. Sign your name. It seals the deal. Vess hesitated only a heartbeat. She wasn't in a position to refuse. With a grimace, she pricked her index finger and pressed the bloodied tip against the bottom of the parchment. The magic ink absorbed it instantly, binding the contract. Done, Vess said tightly, handing the parchment back. Lyra accepted it with a little bow, barely suppressing her smirk, and then, with exaggerated reverence, offered it to Rose. Rose unfolded it slowly, reading the Elvish at a glance. Her lips twitched. For a brief, dangerous moment, Rose's fire-bright eyes gleamed with real amusement. She refolded the parchment, slipping it into her coat. "You're a menace," she murmured to Lyra under her breath. Lyra just smiled sweetly, tossing a wink as if to say, "You're welcome." Vess, oblivious, remained stiff and silent, none the wiser. The iron doors of the detention wing slammed shut behind them, locking away the ghosts of past betrayals. The hallway ahead was dimly lit, lined with the soft glow of containment wards. Waiting just beyond the threshold, Aeliana stood with her arms folded, her silver hair catching the low light like threads of woven moonlight. Her gaze swept over Rose and Lyra, then to Lady Vess, whose hands were still secured in rune-bound cuffs. Aeliana's eyes cooled a fraction, but her voice remained composed. "You completed what you set out to do," Aeliana said, her tone neutral as she gestured for them to follow. "Come, the portal is waiting." They walked the long, echoing corridor together, but the silence wasn't empty. It thrummed with tension. Every step forward carried the heavy knowledge that the choices they had made today would ripple outward. At the entrance to the portal chamber, a vast room humming with ancient magic, Aeliana slowed. She turned first to Lady Vess. "You are free," she said, though her voice sharpened slightly. "But under the conditions set forth by Rose, and under her watch. Should you break the terms..." She let the words hang, cold and final. Lady Vess offered no retort this time, just a nod, tight-lipped and careful. Aeliana's gaze then shifted to Rose, her expression changing. A rare softening from the stoic guardian. "I spoke with Gunnar before you arrived," Aeliana said, her voice carrying the calm weight of centuries lived. "He told me he gave you one of the pack's talismans." Rose shifted slightly, feeling the small object tucked securely in her jacket. She gave a short, respectful nod. "Good," Aeliana continued, stepping closer, lowering her voice so only Rose and Lyra could hear. "You are clever, fierce. But even the strongest warriors forget that strength does not mean solitude." Her hand rested lightly, briefly, on Rose's shoulder, a rare and meaningful gesture. "You carry many burdens, Rose," Aeliana said, "but should the day come when even you cannot bear them alone, call, the pack will come, I will come." For once, Rose didn't offer a quip or a smirk. She simply inclined her head, the smallest flicker of emotion tightening the corner of her mouth, gratitude she wouldn't voice. Lyra, lingering behind, grinned. "We'll try not to break too many things before we call for backup," she said lightly. Aeliana gave a ghost of a smile at that, but her eyes remained locked with Rose's for one last moment. "Remember," she said, her voice steady, "the brightest flames are often born in the deepest shadows. But if the darkness ever tries to claim you again..." Her gaze flicked briefly to Lady Vess, then back to Rose. "Know that you are not alone." Without waiting for a reply, Aeliana gestured toward the portal. It flared to life, a shimmering window of light and magic, its edges crackling softly. "This will deliver you to the Concordian Nexus. From there, your next moves are yours to make." Rose took a breath, then squared her shoulders and stepped toward the portal, Lyra matching her stride. Lady Vess followed, silent and wary, under the weight of their combined scrutiny. The portal snapped shut behind them, leaving only the fading whisper of their passing. Aeliana lingered for a heartbeat longer, gazing into the empty air. Then she spoke so softly, the ancient stones alone bore witness. "May the stars watch over you, firebrand." And with that, she turned and walked away.